In 1833, the Leon family bought over 300 acres of land beside the London and Northwestern Railway line that passed through Bletchley in Buckinghamshire. Mr. Leon was one of Bletchley's biggest benefactors, and he was awarded a baronetcy in 1911. Herbert Samuel Leon matured 60 of the original 300 acres into his country estate. He built a mansion in the middle of his estate. After Mr. and Mrs. Leon died, the estate fell into the hands of a property developer named Captain Hubert Faulkner. Faulkner's plans were to demolish the buildings and sell the land. However, in 1938, the government intervened when the thought of war started to loom. Hitler had invaded Austria and then Czechoslovakia, and the government code cipher school decided they needed a safer place to carry on their intelligence work. Bletchley Park was the perfect place away from enemy air attacks. Bletchley Park was given the cover name Station X because it was the 10th of many sites used by the MI6 for wartime operations. The code breakers finally arrived in full in August of 1939 after much preparation. They disguised themselves as Captain Wrigley's shooting party to hide their true identity. A keyword, a scrambled cipher, and 1 out of a billion results. Thus was the case with the Enigma cipher. The Enigma cipher was used by the German military during World War II in order to send messages undetected across enemy lines. The machine was the code-making marvel at the time. It relied on the electromechanical battery. It used rotating wheels to scramble the message into a series of letters, numbers, and figures. In order to unscramble the message, the receptor would have to identify a sole keyword that would then be entered into the machine. Rotating wheels to a certain degree that made the message readable. Without the keyword, the wheel settings would be near impossible to decipher. Based on information given from the Poles, Alan Turing and Gordon Welchman were able to develop the bomb machine. German messages often contained common words or phrases. Turing and Welchman were able to guess little parts of the original message. Guesses were called crypts. The bomb, by disproving every incorrect one in turn, found possible abilities in the Enigma settings. The British tabulating machine company produced over 200 of the bombs, all of which were destroyed after the war. The Lorenz was an even more complex version of the Enigma. Because of its size, this machine was portable. The Bletchley Park code breakers nicknamed the machine Tunny and the coded messages Fish. The Lorenz used the International Teleprinter code. John Tiltman, a cryptanalyst, broke the first Fish messages at Bletchley in 1941 using hand methods. In 1944, Germans presented issues which made it impossible to break the Lorenz by hand alone. Dr. Max Newman and his team were assigned the task to create a machine to break Tunny. Dr. Max Newman asked for the assistance of Tommy Flowers, and Flowers went on to design/build the Colossus. The first Colossus machine arrived at Bletchley in December 1943. The making of the Colossus was the beginning of today's computers. This machine could read paper tape at 5,000 characters per second, and the paper tape in its wheels traveled at 30 miles per hour. The monstrous mathematical work that normally was done in a matter of a couple hours. Eventually, there were 10 working Colossus machines at Bletchley Park.
The Enigma cipher was the backbone of German military and intelligence communications. It was invented in 1918 and was designed to secure banking communications. It achieved little success with banking, but the German military saw its potential. They thought it was unbreakable because of the Enigma's complexity. If you didn't know the settings, the odds of you breaking the code were 150 million to 1. However, in 1932, the Poles had broken Enigma when the German army was doing trials, and they were able to reconstruct a machine and pass on their knowledge to the British and French in July 1939. This allowed the codebreakers to make critical progress in working out the order in which the keys were attached to the electrical circuits, which had been impossible without an Enigma machine. The codebreakers now had enough knowledge to exploit a chink in Enigma's armor. A fundamental design flaw meant that no letter could ever be encrypted as itself. Errors in messages sent by tired, lazy German operators also gave them clues. The first break into Enigma came in January 1940. The highly effective Enigma decrypt teams worked in huts which operated in pairs and were known only by their numbers for security. The codebreakers that concentrated on the Army and Air Force ciphers were based in Hut 6, supported by a team in Hut 3 that turned the deciphered messages into intelligence reports. With the help of Hut 4, the Associated Naval Intelligence Hut, Hut 8 decoded messages from the German Navy. The material came from a web of wireless intercept stations dotted around Britain and countries overseas called Y stations. The stations listened to enemies' radio messages and sent them to Bletchley Park to be analyzed and decoded. The frenzy of code-breaking activity ceased with the declaration of peace. As World War II gave way to the Cold War, it was vital that the USSR, Britain's former ally, should learn nothing of Bletchley Park's wartime accomplishments. Many who worked there decided to use their talent to break other countries' ciphers, working under a new name, the Government Communications Headquarters. The site became home to a variety of training schools, and in 1987 the park was finally decommissioned after a 50-year association with British intelligence. The codebreakers remained silent until the wartime information was declassified in the 1970s.